all this month in support of the Niagara Children's Center. It's our Help Kids Shine campaign. And we'll be talking to some local ambassadors all this month throughout the day to help spotlight this amazing building. And I've said it before, it is the most innocuous building with the most miraculous happenings on the inside. You go by right across from Brock, the Niagara Children's Center. It's just like this simple one-story brick building. Doesn't look like much. Just kind of blends into the background. But once you step inside there, it is really remarkable what is going on there. Joining me right now on the program, Asha Ballet, and is here. Asha Ballet, whose son Silas has a quite remarkable story. Asha, my apologies in the preamble to this. I butchered your name. It is Asha, correct?
It is, and I hate to tell you, Tom, you are not alone. About 90% of people do.
All right, but I'm glad we clarified. It's Asha Ballet. And Silas, can you outline the challenges Silas faced when he was a newborn? Silas was 25 weeks when he was born. That really presents sometimes some challenges. Can you outline what they were that Silas faced?
Yeah, that it did. So it was a pretty normal pregnancy. He was a monodyne twin, surviving twin. So he and his twin brother shared a placenta. I went into labor at work, had no idea I was in labor. Delivery was really, really quick and very rushed. And so because of the rushed delivery, Silas ended up having stage 4 bilateral brain bleeds. And he, sorry, I've got toddler on the move and I'm just trying to keep an eye on him. He then developed hydrocephalus, which means that his head essentially was growing at a very quick rate. And most babies, their heads grow, I believe it's 1 to 2 centimeters a month. His was growing 1 to 2 centimeters every 2 or 3 days. And this ended up eventually leading, after several taps, to remove some of the CSF fluid, and eventually ended up leading to a VP shunt placement. He also had a pulmonary hemorrhage, so bleeding on his lungs, which caused chronic lung disease, and a myriad of challenges along the way that way with, he had apneic spells later on. He had quite an extensive intubation, but amazingly enough, he was never needed to be trached. He, has been off oxygen for about 1.5 years now, and he's our little miracle baby.
Wow. How long was he in neonatal intensive care?
About 4.5 months.
That must have been, that became your second home, I imagine, then.
It truly was. I actually delivered in St. Catharines, which I do not recommend to anyone delivering at 25 weeks. It was quite scary for them, as this was the first time they had ever done something like that. And then we were sent out to London, to Victoria Hospital, and then we ended up at MAC for the last 2 months of our stay. It was trying, but Ronald McDonald House and places like that were very good to us, and they kind of helped us get through, and a lot of support from family and friends and our church. We definitely couldn't have done it without all of them.
So you leave the hospital, you come back home, and this is where the Niagara Children's Center comes into play. How soon after you come home are you accessing the services at the Niagara Children's Center?
So Sally, our OT, she actually started coming through CCAC to the house, I want to say a week after we got home. She started to do some therapy with us. He was quite significantly behind at that point. He wasn't tracking with his eyes, and we were concerned for that. Being born so early, it's kind of confusing. They actually go by his corrected age until 2. So he was 3.5 months early. So right now he's 21.5 months, but technically to be hitting milestones, he's only 18 months. So at that time, although he's still very, very small to be hitting milestones, he was, at a newborn stage even though at that time he was really about 2 months old by the time we started seeing Sally. And so just some of those fine motor, gross motor, as Sally went along with us, he wasn't using his left side at all because of the brain bleeds. And so until we were able to be seen in center in July, she was making those home visits. I believe it was weekly, possibly bi-weekly, with us to kind of help us get through to the point where we could access the center resources.
So Silas receives what therapies right now?
Right now, he is seeing his occupational therapist, Sally, and he has physiotherapy, with Chris, and speech and language therapies with Ainsley. He's kind of followed through her. And then he also has a social worker, and this prior to COVID kind of wreaking havoc on everyone's lives. He was going to they have an amazing pre-K swim class at the center that he was in as well.
Wow, he's got a whole team.
He really does. He's very well supported.
So what has the difference been then to his life? How has this changed Silas's life?
He's a different kid. I don't know how to say it any better than that. He's a completely different baby. Even 6 months ago, a year ago, his second birthday is coming up in December. By his first birthday, he wasn't rolling, or maybe he was just starting to roll. He was just starting to sit on his own. Sally, and then with the help of Chris later on, and they have given us strategies, and they've given us resources, and just to really help him get back on track and to catch up to where he should be. I'm confident that without the help and support of the Children's Center, he would still be significantly behind, that our life would look very, very different. Instead of a toddler starting to learn how to walk, we'd still be trying to fight and figure out, okay, how do we get him rolling? How do we get him crawling? How do we get this baby off the ground to move? Because he so desperately wants to, but the fine and gross motor functions just weren't there.
It really is quite something when you think about not only the expertise that it took to save his life in the NICU, but then the therapists and what they're doing to help in his life now. Like, we really have come so far that once you're out of the hospital, the struggle isn't over. No. And how much these therapists have helped you, it really is quite a remarkable story you have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at being in the NICU, especially for such an extended period of time, and you think, okay, yay, finally I'm home. And then, the day you're leaving, the day you get home, maybe a couple of days after you get home, when the kind of magic wears off, so to speak, that, finally we brought our baby home. And then it's the, oh my goodness, what do I do now? It's the, my baby is very different than friends of mine who have had kids who are full term or close to full term. It's the, okay, where do I start? How do I cope with this? All the little things that you don't think of, that the expertise that these ladies have brought to our lives is just, it's mind-blowing.
Asha, how familiar were you with the Niagara Children's Center before Silas was born?
Actually, I did a school placement there. So.
Oh, okay. So you are intimately then familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm a developmental support worker, and so for one of my school placements, I actually was in the school side of things, and I knew what the school side of things offered. Didn't quite know the full extent of what was offered, but I, more than my husband, who had heard of the center but hadn't really had any knowledge of it, I knew quite extensively what they provided.
Well, that's great, because then you must have had some confidence when they were going to have to be involved so intimately in your life, right? That must have been because you knew. Well, I've been here, I've worked here. I know the people here. I know this organization. So that must have. But a lot of people, when they go there, they have no idea. They have absolutely no clue. Listen, Asha, I appreciate your time. It sounds like Silas is a going concern, as my father would say, which is a good thing.
Always.
You have to keep an eye on him and make sure everything's going. But thanks so much for coming on the program. And for people who are listening to this, and this is our first, or it's my first ambassadors interview of the year, why should people consider donating to the Niagara Children's Center?
For us, we absolutely, like I said before, we wouldn't be where we were with Silas without them. They do so much. I look at the cost of things without coverage. That's one of the nice things about the Children's Center is that everything is free for coverage. We're so blessed that way that these ladies, these individuals who are there are providing supports that are very seriously, very truly life-changing. And without them, Silas wouldn't be the kind of quote-unquote normal kid that he's starting to be with hitting these milestones and making headway with things the way that he is. Without the Children's Center and the funding that's needed, they can't continue to provide this resources and provide the support that they otherwise would.
Asha, have a great weekend. Have a great time with your family, your baby, and your husband, and all the best. Thanks for coming on our program as well and sharing Silas's story. Really, really interesting.
For sure.
Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, there's Asha Ballette.